So by 1938, Hitler had already been in power for 5 years. And in that time, he'd rebuilt the German military, which violated the Treaty of Versailles. He pulled Germany out of the League of Nations, and he remilitarized the Rhineland, which, again, was against the Treaty of Versailles. And what he learned from this was that he faced no consequences for his actions. So by the time we get to 1938, Hitler's feeling pretty bold. So in March of that year, Hitler set his sights on Austria. He wanted to bring it in under the Third Reich and create this idea of a greater Germany, which was uniting all German-speaking people. Austria's chancellor at the time, he tried to resist. But in case we don't know by now, Hitler was a very hard man to say no to. And so he was really dialing up the pressure. And one of the big things that he did was he threatened invasion if he didn't resign. And his threats were taken seriously. So Schuschnigg resigned on the 11th of March. On the 12th of March, German troops were brought across the border into Austria. And on the surface, many Austrians were welcoming the German troops. Austria had been through a very turbulent time, and they'd been exposed to a lot of Nazi propaganda, so it is reasonable to think that some of them did welcome this idea of a greater Germany. But there were also a lot of people who were agreeing out of fear and desperation. So on March 13th, Austria was formally annexed and became a province of Germany called Ostmark. And we call this the Anschluss. And whilst the Anschluss was technically an invasion, Hitler really didn't want to present it that way. So on the 10th of April that year, he held a referendum to show the world that the Union was the will of the people. So the new Nazi-controlled government held this referendum, this time asking the Austrians if they approved of joining Germany, and the result was a very suspicious 99.7% voted yes. If we know anything from elections, you're never gonna get that higher result legitimately. So here's the catch. The Jews, political opponents, and anyone who was deemed undesirable were banned from voting. The vote was also not run in secret. As we all know, votes now are done by a secret ballot. This one wasn't. It was done under the watch of Nazi soldiers. The ballot itself was also wildly biased. Basically, there was a huge yes circle and then a teeny tiny no circle. And of course, we've got to factor in that thousands of people who opposed the Nazi regime were already in jail. So I think calling this a vote is a bit of a stretch. So I guess the next question is, why bother doing it? If it's not legitimate, why bother holding the vote at all? The Nazis were already in place. And I think the answer is that the world was watching, and Hitler was testing how far he could push things before people actually started pushing back. And in this case, again, Britain and France did nothing. They were desperate to avoid war, so they stayed quiet. And so this just emboldened Hitler further. It showed that aggression worked, the League of Nations was not going to step in, was not going to fight him, and it also showed that democracy could be hijacked. And of course, as we all know in hindsight, this bravery that these kind of things gave Hitler did not bode well in the long run. Just 1 year later, Hitler took Czechoslovakia. A year after that, World War II. The Anschluss wasn't just the annexation of a country, it was a huge warning sign that everyone just ignored. And that's why I think this is so important. Because if the world were to see similar things happen again, we should know not to ignore it.